Eastcoaster, the event where all sorts of enthusiasts from the eastern Pennsylvania area and the surrounding area all come together to be enthusiasts. An event that you could argue my YouTube channel is named after, even though I came up with the idea before ever attending Eastcoaster. And the event where Six Flags Great Adventure refuses to ever come. Let's get on with the podcast.
Attention. I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the second episode of the Coaster Life podcast. I am your host, Mr. Sean Kajema, Mr. Eastcoaster fan, whatever you want to call me. And today is a very special episode as I am here with my very first ever guest on the Coaster Life podcast, which is going to be the norm. So last time it was just me talking about my coaster life, but now I'm here with...
Hello, I'm Michael, also known as Blue Diamond Coasters.
That really seems like the best way for you to introduce yourself on this podcast with just your normal stick.
Just doing my Michael Eisner impersonations like I've been doing since the very beginning.
So if you've never heard of Michael Blue Diamond Coasters, give yourself kind of like a brief introduction.
Well, first off, if you haven't heard of me, then you haven't watched Sean's videos, because I'm pretty much in like half of them.
Yeah,
you're in half of mine. So I'm Michael. I'm a roller coaster enthusiast. Obviously, I've been good friends with Sean for the past few years now. I started my own YouTube channel, Blue Diamond Coasters. I also am on TikTok as well. I used to be really big on there, but I kind of I'm trying to focus more on the YouTube side now. I got a bunch of videos in my backlog of editing stuff right now, and I'm eventually going to put them all out in the next couple of months. But yeah, that's pretty much all I need to know about me.
If you've seen some of my YouTube videos on Eastcoaster Fan, you've probably seen him in at least one. He's in a lot. But this video or this podcast episode isn't going to be about deep diving into your coaster life. That's going to be another episode.
Not yet.
Not yet. We'll see.
That'll need two parts, honestly. I was thinking when you came out the first episode, while we were like, all right, how am I going to do this? And I was going through all of yeah, I'm going to need a lot. I need to write all of this stuff down.
This episode's actually going to be about a trip that we went on this past weekend, and that was to Eastcoaster. Yeah, you got the badge right there.
Yep.
So for those of you who don't know about Eastcoaster, I know I talked about it a little bit in the past episode, but Eastcoaster is an ACE event, ACE being for the American Coaster Enthusiasts, and it takes place in February. And you might be wondering, why is a coaster event happening in February in eastern Pennsylvania? And that is because it's not about riding roller coasters. It's really all about seeing all sorts of coaster enthusiasts, as well as getting presentations from all local parks and just having a good time getting together and in being enthusiasts like we all love to be. So this was actually our second ever trip to Eastcoaster. So last year, me and Michael both went to Eastcoaster for the first time. And last year was actually different from this event, which we'll talk about more in detail as we go through the experience. But last year's event was actually in Hershey Park in the Music Box Theater. You enter the park in February. It was completely dead, and it was cool being there. But this year they decided to switch it up and hosted it inside of the Red Lion Hotel Harrisburg Hershey. That's the full name. I did not come up with that name of the hotel. The whole event, we were kind of comparing, contrasting last year's event to this year. And I think we can both agree that we thought this year was better. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, it was cool being able to go inside Hershey Park, in the middle of the off season. But the theater, I mean, also it was kind of nice that in terms of seating, at this year's event, it was just basic chairs. And last year we actually had theater seats. But with this event, you had a whole table to sit at. So we got to sit with a bunch of our other enthusiast friends. There was a lot more room to move around. Because last year they have a bunch of different kind of tables set up for the auctions and vendors and the bake sale. And they had to kind of set them up in these really narrow path aisleways through the theater last year. And so during like the breaks in between presentations, it was like very tight to get through. Here it was a much bigger space.
If you're ever thinking about staying in a hotel, kind of like a little bit far out from Hershey Park, but like close enough where you could still commute to the park, let's say on a summer trip or something else, it's not a bad location.
I mean, the area is also pretty good too. Like right across from, or right next door was a Sheetz. And this past year, I became a big fan of Sheetz after kind of staying up there for a couple of months. And it was just great to go back to Sheetz. I'm living in Wawa territory and miss Sheetz all the time. So it was good to stay there. And the hotel was pretty nice.
There was a Chick-fil-A, but we were there from Saturday to Sunday. And of course, Chick-fil-A is closed on Sundays. So anyway, we're going to basically go through Eastcoaster like we were experiencing it this past weekend. Share some highlights, lowlights. I'll be honest, it's going to be pretty hard for me to say a few lowlights because this event was great.
I mean, if you want me to give my one lowlight, I know it wasn't included with our stay, but we did get their breakfast buffet at the hotel. The breakfast would apparently cost $15. It was not worth $15. But their dinner was nice. We ate the restaurant the night before, and it was actually good dinner. But if you stay at the Red Lion Hotel, I'd probably recommend going to either Chick-fil-A or Sheetz for breakfast. But that's my one complaint for the event, honestly.
Or just drive to Hershey, and there's a lot of stuff around there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're in Harrisburg, Hershey area. There's, like, tons of options.
You actually started a bit differently than I did because for those who don't know, I go to school. You can kind of see on my sweatshirt. I go to school, University of Delaware, and I wanted to make sure I had a day of like being able to work on stuff before I went on this trip. That's something you always kind of have to balance, especially as a college coaster enthusiast, balancing work, school, and going to amusement parks.
I learned that lesson the hard way one year when I like went to too many parks, and then my grades started to go down. Like maybe I should stop going to parks for a little bit.
So yeah, you and Matt though had a different start where you went the day before, and you kind of talked about that a bit with the restaurant and things like the breakfast. So how was that first day? I mean, it was mainly a travel day for you, but was there anything notable that happened?
Well, I mean, most of it was traveling, but we met earlier because I knew that I had nothing going on this day. Like I took off work and everything, so like I want to do something else while I'm up there at Eastcoaster or heading up that way that I don't normally get to do while I'm down here in Delaware. And I thought, why don't I go see a movie? And at first I was trying to see if the I think it's the Regal that's in King of Prussia Mall, which is kind of over towards Philly. Their IMAX screen can show 70 millimeter. They're like one of the few, I think like dozen or so theaters in the country that can show it. So I'm like, how would I try seeing Oppenheimer? Because I know they were showing it, or at least re-showing it. But during that weekend, they had stopped showing it. But I saw that they were showing a re-release of Dune, the movie that came, or the 2021 Dune. They are going to release the old
Dune Part 1.
Dune Part 1, directed by Denis Villeneuve. And I'm like, ooh, why don't I go see that? But then I also remembered in Lancaster, there's a really nice theater called Penn Cinema. They're kind of like a small local chain. There's two in Pennsylvania and also one in Delaware. And they have an IMAX screen. And I saw they're re-releasing Dune Part 1 in IMAX, kind of to build up hype for Part 2, which is coming out later this month. So I told Matt about it, and he's also a movie guy, and he'd never seen it before in IMAX. So I'm like, let's go see it. And so we went there, saw it in IMAX, and it was incredible. I mean, I saw it in IMAX when it first came out, but it had been since then since I rewatched it. And in my opinion, if you're going to watch Dune, or even Dune Part 2, see it in IMAX, because that's how I feel like it was meant to be seen. It's a movie I can watch at Netflix on home, but I can see it on this massive screen again. And that was, like I said, a great way to start up the event, or
Your weekend just needed a little bit of Timothy Chalamet. That's all. That's
It'll
all you
need a
need.
little bit of Oscar Isaac and floating Stefan Skarsgård.
So yeah, after that, basically my approach for East Coaster was to wake up really early and drive. So I left about where I am in Delaware around, I want to say 7 or so, and then arrived close to 9. And yeah, it was pretty normal drive, just like driving to Hershey, a little bit further, but about the same drive. Red Lion Hotel, I will say, first impressions coming up there, it's surprisingly a big hotel. It has like a lot of ballrooms and things like that. I believe it was the location for the banquet CoasterCon 2021 when it was in Pennsylvania. I could be wrong about that,
I could
but
definitely
that's
see
where
it.
I assume like they found this place. But
Well, and I know there was other. Sorry, I know there was other events going on that weekend. Like when we were walking towards dinner the night before, like some guy came up to us and was like, "Are you here for the outdoors show?" And I'm like, "No, we're here for roller coaster enthusiasts." It's like, "Oh, I'm here for that."
You know what's so funny? When I was walking around the hotel, like heading back to the room, putting my stuff in there, I swear I thought there was like a room situated for like almost a gun show. It's like this is
This
such
is
a weird.
Pennsylvania we're talking about. So, look, a hotel in Pennsylvania is the only place where you can have a convention for guns and roller coasters right next door to each other. Another thing me and Matt did the night before was, we're in the hotel room, we got nothing to do. It's like, let's see what's on TV. And we decided to watch Shrek 2 just because it was on. And then I think halfway through, like the Sci-Fi Channel just like went black, so we had to flip to something else. I think we ended up on Impractical Jokers for like just the first segment, and then we switched back to Shrek 2.
Almost a year ago now, we saw Joe Gatto who was on the Impractical Jokers within Hershey.
And this was a Joe Gatto episode too, like it was a rerun.
So entering East Coaster, we were in one of the like banquet rooms, and there was actually both a sign, like a paper sign on the door saying American Coaster Enthusiast, which was really cool. There's also a projection on the wall. I'm not sure if
I didn't see that. Oh wait, no, I think I did.
It was right by the sign-in booth. But then entering, it was just a much different setup than before. You were talking about the difference between being in the Music Box Theater and here. And I'm just going to say right now, I think I prefer this venue overall. Just because how everything's laid out just makes so much more sense. When you enter this venue, you basically had on the right side all the merch. So Ace stuff, and then probably the highlight, honestly, of East Coaster is all the other merch. And this stuff is cheap. Last year, I'm not sure if you can see it in the background. God, it's reversed. There is a Mr. Six puppet right there hanging on my light.
You still have it there.
I still have it, and I got that at last year's East Coaster. And this year, yeah, we got a bunch of merch as well.
Basically what it is, they're not really it's not really merchandise, just vendors. I mean, I guess they signed up. Or these people I've seen at multiple Ace events selling their stuff. And it's mainly just people trying to say all right, I'm trying to empty out my collection and also make some money. Like last year, Cliff, who is very well known in the Dorney Park fandom, I got a bunch of merch off him. They're also, I feel like I've seen these same people at Phoenix Fall Fun Fest, which is an event that Knoebels does. They kind of have their own, there's maybe an hour or an hour and a half, maybe. Well, it depends on when you get there, of just this. It's just a whole pavilion full of people selling all sorts of stuff like that. And it's a really great way to see a lot of this really cool old merchandise, while also helping out, I guess, these vendors. Yeah, my wife wants me to thin out my collection of random coaster junk, which will probably be me in about 60 years.
Yeah, I think every coaster enthusiast is going to hit that point where it's like, oh crap, I got to get rid of stuff.
I mean, look at my
right now.
shelves.
I'm in the hoarding state. I think you are too.
I inherited from my grandmother. She was a hoarder too. I just hoard very specific stuff.
Yeah, there was tons of stuff that you could buy. And then further up, also part of the event are door prizes. So randomly during the event, they would bring up a few names on the screen and say, all right, you're welcome to come up and grab whatever's on the table. And there's some even more interesting stuff on the table. All sorts of stuff. Last year, I was lucky and was one of the first names called and got one of those like banners of Steel Force that's hanging on the flag post at Dorney Park. So I got really lucky there. This year, I got a few smaller things that I'll bring up. Actually, you know what? I'm going to bring it up now. Why not?
I got mine in my hand right here. I'll show it off. This is a mug from Hershey Park. They used to sell a couple of versions of these for different rides, where it kind of has like the blueprints and also the stats for the ride. They had a couple of these for Fahrenheit, and I grabbed one. I know there's one for Lightning Racer and Wildcat and maybe even Storm Runner. But I remember like when I was a kid going to the park and seeing these, like, wow, I really want these. And now they don't sell them anymore. So this is a really cool way to get them. And you know, things with door prizes, they can be anything. Like I've gotten door prizes where it's just like a pin or a button. It's like if you're one of the last names, but if you're one of the first names, or maybe like people don't go for some of the bigger items, they go for like other smaller items. Like this past year, I was at an Ace event at Six Flags America, and my door prize was a Mind Eraser seat. Like the entire back of the Mind Eraser seat, because they're getting new trains. So door prizes can be all shapes and sizes. It kind of just depends on when your name gets called. I did like the selection this year. By the time like the last group of names were called, you were getting down to slim pickings. Thankfully, I was able to grab my thing before someone grabbed it.
So I'll quickly show what I think was one of my favorite things I got from, well, actually, the thing I got from the door prize. I didn't get multiple things, but for those listening in, I'll describe it. For those watching, you could see. So this is, in my hand, a mouse pad. So, you know, very thin. And it's a picture of Scooby-Doo on it. And on the mouse pad it says Paramount's Carowinds. So this was a piece of merch that was, I guess, sold during the Paramount days at that park. And I have no idea when this was sold. Actually, hold on. There's something on the side here. 2004. Okay. So 2004 this was sold. So about a year, maybe 2 years before the Paramount Parks were sold off to Cedar Fair.
That was like 2006, so about 2 years.
Regarding the merch stand, the other notable thing I got, someone was selling a poster for Son of Beast that I picked up for, I want to say like $3.
I was kind of surprised. I mean, last year I got a few things. I got a Roller Coaster Tycoon board game, which I still haven't played, and I got a few like prints of stuff. But those I feel like were a bit more expensive. Like I think I paid like $20 for the board game and maybe like $8 each for the prints. These, I feel like, especially the vendors they were like, we are trying to get rid of our stuff. I think for one of the items I paid in quarters because because I got a lot of quarters from my job. So I'm like, all right, this is the time I can empty out my wallet. And I pretty much did. Like my wallet went from like really thick to really thin just from all the change that I used.
You got to bring a lot of dollar bills when you go to these Ace events, especially Eastcoaster, because you may end up spending a lot of money.
I remember hearing people like going across the street saying like, guys, there's no ATM in the hotel, but there's an ATM over at Sheetz. Everyone, let's go to Sheetz to get some dollar bills. Yeah, and I picked up a couple things from the merch tables because, like I said, I'm a hoarder and I like to collect a bunch of things. So starting off with some small items, we got a pin from Islands of Adventure. It's got the Islands of Adventure logo on it. That was only about $1. I got a poster here. I'll take the rubber band off. A poster for El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure. And it has like the old like It's Playtime branding on the bottom. It's even got, it even says 2005 on it. So I guess this was from the year before it came out.
Peak Mr. Six.
This one, I mean, I only just now noticed the 2005 on it. So maybe this was like announcement posters or like kind of put up towards the end of the season after they announced it. So that was really cool. This is kind of a really personal thing for me. I got a strategy guide for Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, which Roller Coaster Tycoon is one of my favorite games ever, like that whole series. And my kind of new life goal is to try to pick up like all the like supplemental stuff for it. Like last year I got the board game. This year I'll get the strategy guide. Eventually I'm going to get the pinball machine. That's my end goal.
How much is the pinball machine? Those things cost a lot of money.
Like I said, that's the end goal. It's building up to that. Maybe next
maybe you could sell maybe you could sell your Mind Eraser seat to get the pinball machine.
Or I could just find like some arcade that's like going out of business. Yeah, it was really cool to get this. And actually, I think originally this was like rubber banded to a copy of Roller Coaster Tycoon 2. But I told the guy, like, I don't need the game. I already have like the full version of the game. So I'll just take the guy. And he only sold this to me for $1. And he had a bunch of other Roller Coaster Tycoon. It wasn't Roller Coaster Tycoon, but like roller coaster building games. Some of which I never even heard of. It was like definitely kind of like knockoff versions of it, or well, some of these were even in 3D, so they were kind of like early versions of No Limits. Like imagine if No Limits, but for like casuals.
I remember a few apps back in the day that I downloaded onto my phone that weren't even Roller Coaster Tycoon. This is a deep cut if anyone knows this as an enthusiast, but there used to be, I mean there still is, but there's an app called Air Coaster that you could get for mobile. And it was like the closest I think you could get to No Limits on your iPhone or iPod Touch in like 2012.
Another thing I got is this giant poster map of Six Flags Great Adventure from the year 2007. The guy actually was selling a bunch of older maps of Great Adventure. I was kind of going for 2000s, like kind of like, you know, late 2000s. That's a kind of era that I'm a bit interested in for kind of like parks in general, just because that was like, it was when I was alive, but wasn't like super into coasters. So it was pretty cool. And I didn't really look at them, but you'll find them a lot of these like Ace vendors, people just selling their maps. And you could probably pick them up for maybe like a couple of bucks. But there was one guy I saw, he had like just a whole box of them. I'm like, I'm not sifting through all of them. And I got plenty of maps already.
Yeah, if I think if we're thinking of the same guy, it was like in a white, almost cardboard box, and it was like completely filled. Like I don't know how. Like he must have just went to parks when they had all these paper maps, just grab a giant handful of them, like almost 6 inches thick of maps.
And then the last thing I got was this. This is probably one of my favorite things that I got. It is a press kit from the opening of Batman and Robin the Chiller, or at least the first opening, when they first tried opening it in 1997. But it's this really cool folder. It's got like this kind of icicle thing on it, and that kind of opens up. You see the Batman and Robin logos. And then inside, there's a couple really cool things. You got these like really nice prints of when the ride first opened. So it still had the 0G rolls and everything. Also inside are like news releases, and I was really looking into these. It's like the whole schedule for the prep for like the media day. It talks about like who you can interview. Like, you know, here's the interview opportunities. You got Paul Rubin, who I remember that name.
The banana guy.
Yep. I'm like, oh, it's the coaster riding banana guy. And he's labeled as like coaster expert, historian, writer, and lecturer. And also talking about, I think it's like, one of the interviews is a supermodel named Vendella who was in Batman and Robin. So I have that movie somewhere. I could probably watch it and find her. Then like the CEO of Six Flags, the head of Great Adventure, and also members of Ace. So I guess if you wanted to interview Ace people to put on your news stories.
One was more of like an independent thing, and then I think was a local Harrisburg news station.
Oh, wow.
And I did see them wandering around the event, but I didn't know what it was for.
Were they the ones? I saw a guy, like, it was across the room from where we were with like a really nice looking camera.
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering, like, why does this guy have like the best camera ever and is filming us? And the other cool thing in here is a 1997 Silver Pass It's this like silver card. On the front, it's got the Batman and Robin Chiller logo. And on the back, it says, this card entitles the bearer to 4 complimentary one-day admission tickets during the 1997 season. So it won't work anymore, but it's cool to have.
I was going to say, you should like, you do what people with like very, very old Disney tickets do.
Yeah.
And just
that was a video like a couple of weeks ago. Like someone bringing like a 70s Disney ticket to Magic Kingdom, and it worked. Because it didn't have an expiration date on it. Oh, I'm just now noticing this on the top. I remember looking up ads for this. This is the ads before Mr. Six when their tagline was bigger than Disneyland, closer to home. Like that was like the big selling point for Six Flags. Like, oh, you can't. Oh, why go all the way to Disneyland? Why go all the way to Disneyland? They only have Indiana Jones and Space Mountain. We got Viper. That's what we got.
We got Z-Force and Shockwave going around the country. The last thing I'll quickly mention, I didn't really go over there, is the silent auctions. So, if you've never done this before at an Ace event or don't know what a silent auction is, basically they have a bunch of items on the table. Sometimes they'll have the paper flipped over. Sometimes they won't. It really depends on the silent auction. But basically, you write on a piece of paper how much you're willing to bid on it. Now, there is a minimum bid for these items. So, like, sometimes they'll say, starting bid, $10, increments of 5. And there's a bunch of boxes. So, you basically just write down your name and how much you bid. And it just keeps going until time runs out. There were a few interesting items here, too. I didn't really go get anything at the silent auction. I know you did, and you could talk about that. But I know a few interesting items I know on there. There were, I believe, 4 tickets to Hollywood Nights.
Yeah.
Which is Holiday World's enthusiast event. There were tickets to Lake Compounce and like with shirts and stuff like that. There were some coaster parts on there.
That's a very common silent auction item are coaster parts.
And then the thing you got. So you should definitely share what you got.
Well, first off, really I should just say, like, my background in Ace silent auctions. I think when I first started Ace, I wasn't really getting into them, but I think it started like around CoasterCon this past year was when I started getting into it. It's kind of like a mind game too, especially it's like when you want to get multiple items. So it's like, all right, I'll put my bid over here, but then someone outbid me over there, which means I have more money to spend if I want to bid higher over here. But it's also like it gets kind of stressful, especially when you get down to like the last few minutes and everybody's scrambling to check the papers.
I call them the silent auction vultures because they're just surrounding the paper.
I'll admit I've done that too. I'll like hover around the paper, and as soon as someone writes something down, as after they walk away, I just swoop in, add $5 more, and I outbid them. There is a benefit because the money does go towards one of the funds. You get to pick which one, or whoever's selling the item can pick. And I've done a few things over the past couple of months. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll try doing something here. And I was looking around, and I see Knoebels donated some items. That's the other thing. A lot of these items are donated either by the parks, or, well, mostly it's the parks, or sometimes like even manufacturers will donate stuff. Like I've gotten stuff from S&S that were at CoasterCon, and I saw Knoebels donated some stuff. So like, all right, let's see what they got. And I saw it said Phoenix flag, and it was this like rolled up orange flag. And at first I thought, oh, it's like a flag that says Phoenix on it. I opened it up and it's like, no, this is just a blank orange flag. What's so special about this? Then I realized, and I looked up a picture, these are the orange and yellow flags that are flown on the lift hill of the Phoenix. And I thought, wow, that's actually really cool. And I looked, I think at the time, I might have been the first to bid. And it was only like, I think, a $20 minimum bid. So I'm like, you know what? I'll put $20 on. And there was 4 flags, 2 orange and 2 yellow. I was kind of going for the orange one just because I think that's like a better color for Phoenix. And I was bidding. There was someone else that kept outbidding me, so I outbid them. And then I'm like, all right, they're outbidding me over here, but I can outbid this other person over here on the other flag for a cheaper price. And then I come back later, and I see that somebody outbid me on mine, and I look at the name, and it was Dino. I can't pronounce the last name.
It's like Verdois or something like that.
Yeah.
DJ Verdois.
I only need to see the first name. It was Dino, who is the co-owner of Dino's Wonder Wheel Park, aka the park at Coney Island with the Wonder Wheel. And for a few minutes, I sit there like, did Dino just outbid me? I don't want to outbid Dino. I'm not going to outbid this man because this man has money. I know that.
Especially since they have a coaster too called Phoenix.
Or as Mr. Knoble calls it, Fake Phoenix.
A fake Phoenix.
But then I'm like, wait, if he's getting that flag, I can bid on the other flag for I think at the time it was like $45. Or no, I think it was 35. And I was like, you know what? I'll bid 35 on that, so maybe me and Dino can get it. And then someone outbid me on that one. Although I think I would talk the guy. I saw the guy write his name above mine. I'm like, dude, you outbid me, and he's like, oh, I didn't mean to outbid you. I'm just trying to donate money to the preservation fund. I was like, why don't you just donate money then? So then I put then 45 on it, and then right around then is when the time ran up. So I am the proud owner now of a flag that was flown over the Phoenix Lift. Now I have to back up almost for those watching the video, but just to kind of give you guys a sense of scale, this thing is probably like,
it's big.
I'd say like 5 feet long. Dino got the other one, and like you said, they have a coaster at Dino's Wonder Wheel Park called Phoenix. And I was talking with him afterwards, like, I'm gonna fly this over my Phoenix now. So, and then we also both went over to Dick Knoble.
Which is definitely Dino fanboying so hard.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's a fanboy too, which is really cool.
He's an awesome guy.
And then we went over to Dick Knoble after the event ended, and he went and signed it and even dated it. So yeah, that's really cool to have. I don't know where I'm going to put this. I definitely want to like, I'm thinking like I should get like a flat one of those like small flagpoles because there's like a little hole I can put onto a pole.
You should get one of those big flagpoles every morning. Say, good morning, USA.
Good morning, Knobles.
Good morning, Knobles. I got a feeling it's going to be a wonderful day.
I got a feeling that I'm going to get some standing air time.
So yeah, that was a bit of the silent auction. I definitely want to move on to the actual like main event stuff now. There was a lot here, and I'm definitely not going to go through all of it. If you want to hear everything that was announced at Eastcoaster, new for 2024, or like all updates, I have a YouTube video all about Eastcoaster. Depending on whether you're watching this right as the podcast releases or well after, it's going to depend where this video is live or not. But definitely check it out when it is live, or if it is live. Yeah, so let's go through, again, gonna go through quick the stuff that was kind of shown off at Eastcoaster. Kind of go through the parks in order.
One interesting thing they talked about at the beginning was that they talked a little bit about Eastcoaster 2000, which was like, you know, from the year 2000, where they had a bunch of parks in attendance, and they actually announced like 13 roller coasters. It was kind of very interesting when they were talking about kind of the older versions of Eastcoaster, where this was the press event. And now it's kind of morphed into more of a social gathering, and they do kind of like small updates and small announcements.
Well, it's kind of funny too with like the technology and everything for animations. Have you ever seen like videos of IAAPA from like the 90s?
Well, I mean, I've seen videos of like when they announced Raptor.
Looking at it now.
When they announced, I remember I always loved watching the announcement video for Raptor at Cedar Point, and like really old, like, you know how we were talking about earlier, these like early versions of No Limits. This is what they used. This is what parks used before they could hire actual animation studios. Or it can be like Kentucky Kingdom and just use Planet Coaster to announce a roller coaster.
The first group that was up was Ace Eastern Pennsylvania. Their main thing was just going through the events that were going to be this year. A total of 10 events. That does include, though, Eastcoaster and the Iron Menace tour. That was the following day. But the biggest takeaway was, I guess, two things. One, they're moving Clowning around to July. And then the second one is a new event called Slide with Ace. And this is a water park event at the Crystal Pool. The Crystal Pool, of course, being at Knobles. It's kind of like this weird,
It's a
like,
pool.
yeah, it's a pool.
I remember when
as simple as you could get.
When I brought our good friend David, aka Stormer Sam, to Canoles for the first time. We're walking down that main road, and he's like, "What's that over there?" I'm like, "That's just a pool. It's just a pool in the middle of the park." And he just stood there for like 10 seconds, just mouth wide open, like, "What?" You pretty much have to walk right past the changing rooms for the crystal pool when you go back to go to Twister.
Hershey Park, so they did two things. One was that they premiered, of course, that image that I'm sure a lot of you enthusiasts saw on their Instagram of a mysterious shipment.
The mystery crate that is containing Alex the lion before he gets shipped to Africa.
I think all of us kind of can infer what's going on with that crate, and it is new restraints for Skyrush, which is going to be very interesting to see how that goes. Or a new train, it could be either. This was not filmed, these two things. So one, they teased a new show coming to the Music Box Theater in the summer, which I'm so happy about. And then the second thing was just, along with the new train for Comet, which they showed off, they are doing station upgrades as well. I don't know to what extent, but they're doing them. That's what they said.
Which is good, because that station, I was thinking about it, like, especially if you've been to Comet, you might kind of know what I'm getting at, but like the station isn't, especially on the loading side, it's not really like a perfect rectangle. It's kind of like as you head towards the front, it gets really narrow. So for people trying to head towards the front row, it can be very tight. And also the back row kind of has this weird line they have to zigzag to get to. So you get that, although it's kind of difficult to do kind of like expansions on the station of Comet when Skyrush goes right down next to it. But I'll be very interested to see how it turns out.
Six Flags Fiesta Texas, so a few things here. They kind of started off by showing this actually really cool thing with Kid Flash. So if you remember, yes, if you remember when they were constructing Kid Flash, they had an actual kid do it. And they showed us this really funny blooper reel that is not in my video, I think. I could be wrong. But it's basically the kid spewing out a bunch of dates ranging from like late October to early November. Like a total of 30 days or so that this kid said.
Or like pretty much every single like day that the park was open. Because they didn't know when Flash was going to open or do previews. So they're like, well, let's just film let's film this kid saying every single date that it could open, which made my editor brain and kind of like filmmaking brain really happy, where it's like, I don't know what is going to be the final version of this, so let's film every possible version.
Look, we got this kid in for one day. We got to make the most out of him. Child labor laws. Which we'll get into.
I bet that kid was like,
Dino.
I could tell the kid was also kind of like stumbling over some of them when he had to like say it over and over again. Because that's the thing, we just saw some of the takes. He probably had to do multiple takes for each date.
Two more things for Fiesta Texas. One, this may have been something they announced earlier, but this is my first time hearing about it. That they're also doing a Total Eclipse at the Park event, April 8th, but then also doing a firework and drone show, which they normally do at the park, but at 1 p.m. when it's like pitch black outside, which I found really cool.
Yeah. I know there was another eclipse that just did Texas, I think late last year. I think they did a similar thing for that. But I'm already doing an eclipse event at Cedar Point that day, which is at the other end of the path that the eclipse is taking. So, and they joked you'll be getting the guy who was presenting for Fiesta said you'll be getting the Jeffrey Siebert special, and I kind of said to I think either you or Matt like, yeah, but I already got the Tony Clark special. So,
well, we definitely got the Jeffrey Siebert special with this next part, and this part I posted to Instagram. The presenter for Six Flags Fiesta Texas basically started off by saying, so you might be wondering why we decided to go to monorail. So I'm going to let Jeffrey Siebert tell you why. And they start playing this
it was
video.
Like, the framing was like that this was their internal planning meetings and that somebody filmed this secretly.
Yeah, that's right. So they show this video, and Jeffrey Siebert's on stage, kind of being like really goofy. It was kind of funny. And then a man appears off the side, kind of like dressed all dapper. and comes up, and all of a sudden, I think 30 seconds after, they start singing, and then we're like, holy crap, they're parodying The Simpsons. If you
Monorail.
don't know
Monorail.
this
Monorail.
yeah, famous Simpsons episode, Marge vs. the Monorail, I think it's called.
Yep. Written
They
by
basically
Conan
did a
O'Brien.
parody of the whole thing. It was fantastic. And I posted that clip to Instagram at Eastcoaster Fan if you're interested in seeing it, but also be in the YouTube video. But oh my god, we were laughing so hard.
Definitely check that video out to see the video and then hear the moment I realized what it was parodying. You can hear me out since I was right next to you. It was very loud. And yeah, I was just dying because, you know, I'm a bit of a Simpsons fan, especially like for the old school Simpsons stuff. And as soon as I realized what the parody was, I'm like, this is awesome.
I did realize, however, that it was not exclusive to Eastcoaster. It was actually made for Ace Winterfest.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I didn't know about it before Eastcoaster, and I was completely happy.
I'm pretty sure every event, because I know other Ace regions do similar events. Like I know Western PA has coaster stock. Or I don't know what theirs is. Is it coaster stock?
Theirs is Coaster Bash.
Coaster Bash. Coaster stock's the thing at Kings Island.
Yes.
Right?
Not anymore. They're doing a spring conference there this year.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure like this guy has gone to multiple Ace events and has shown that video. But yeah, it's still a great video.
And then they ended off with giving us free tickets, which they did last year, but it's just so nice. And on top of that, flash passes for each of the coasters.
Well, okay, I realize that. I don't think they're flash passes. I'm looking closer at this. So
what are they?
The admission ticket, it's good for the whole 2024 season, but it's also like it says VIP ticket. So it also includes admission to the VIP lounge. And instead of flash passes, it says VIP ride access. And the rides that it's for, it's for some of the big coasters, so like Wonder Woman, Cliffhanger, Batman, Krypton Coaster. And then there's also the 3, or at least some of the new rides that are in the DC Universe section. So Kid Flash Cosmic Coaster, the Monorail, and then the Cyborg, which is the Zamperla Nebulas. And it says VIP ride access. It says present this voucher to the attendant at the VIP ride entrance. Now, I don't know if that means Flash Pass. I don't remember when I was there. I mean, it was called Flash Pass, so I don't know if it's a separate thing or it's just another name for Flash Pass. But what does that mean, VIP entrance? That's what I'm very curious about.
Exit Pass, maybe?
Maybe. So I guess it's even better than a Flash Pass.
Like Exit Pass and you get to choose your row?
I guess.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I still have it's kind of out of view, but I have the Flash passes that I got at last year's event. They actually took to Fiesta, Texas. But the weekend I went, the lines weren't long. And also, like, half of the rides that I had passes for were closed or under renovation. So I didn't end up using any of them. There's a nice little map on the back that actually shows the whole DC Universe section, which is kind of cool because when they announced it, I was trying to think, like, what does this area look like? Because I've been to that part of the park. I didn't know what it was going to be. And it shows, like, kind of the general layout for the monorail, which I'm excited for.
Monorail. A few quick ones now. So first was PTC. So 2 things I just note here. Internally, Comet was called Project X, which I found very funny. And then I don't know if this was public knowledge or not, but they're working on the Underground at Adventureland. Tom Rebbe, who runs PTC, the thing he's kind of known for at Eastcoaster is just very funny pictures, just on his travels,
the meme
just showing us
is what we call them.
Slides, and they're great. They're just very funny to look at.
He also told a story about how when they were renovating the trains for Roar over the off season, they found somebody's wallet and were able to track them down. But I was just like, and they said like they lost in July. And I remember riding Roar when I went in October or September. So I was like, did I ride a train with a wallet right under me without even realizing that? It probably had like thousands of rides while I was on that train. So if you want to find like a good secure way to keep your loose articles, find a PTC train and just shove it in there, and it'll be in there for thousands of rides and still stay there.
So then we had quickly well, not quickly, it was about like an hour and a half, 2 hours. We had our lunch. It was an all-you-can-eat buffet style with like turkey and what else was there? There was meatloaf, mashed potatoes, I think a peach cobbler. Is that what it was? I don't know.
I didn't really have much of the lunch. I only grabbed like a couple things, and it was fine.
Next one's Dollywood, and this one was interesting. So regarding like new stuff they announced, is mainly going over what they did for the past year. So nothing too crazy, mainly like, oh, here are the events we're doing. Here's a like outside image of the new Dolly Parton Museum that's coming. They kind of addressed Lightning Rod, but not really. But then they ended off by gifting everyone a free Dollywood ticket. And this was probably one of the most surprising like free things we got this event, and I think you can agree.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if this is like a typical thing for Eastcoaster for giving away tickets, or it's just kind of like a recent thing. Because like last year, we only got really the one from Fiesta. And I guess Dino gave us one free ride on the Wonder Wheel. But like this year, we had a couple parks giving free tickets, which that's not realizing.
Really nice.
I mean, going back to like the original intent for Eastcoaster being like this big kind of press event where they announce coasters, this is kind of like, you know, I mean, giving the people that come to the event free tickets is kind of building off of that, where it's like, here's the stuff we're announcing for the upcoming season, and here's your ticket to come in and check it out and then go back and report on it. But instead of giving it to, you know, news outlets and media outlets, they're giving it to enthusiasts, so then we can tell everybody about it. Because I feel like maybe it's more like the younger enthusiasts. They all kind of have, you know, they're on social media, or some of us are, you know, content creators. So they're giving us these free tickets and also, you know, talking about some of the new additions and events at the park to kind of encourage people to come to the park for the.
But the fact that Dollywood handed us
tickets, that's the other thing.
Huge.
Like Fiesta Texas, I mean, I'm pretty sure like a lot of the people in that room were already pass holders to Six Flags, because we're Ace, we're enthusiasts. Of course, we have at least one. But Dollywood, I mean, not only is that a pretty far park, but Dollywood is, you know, probably not as much as Disney or Universal, but probably after them, they're probably the next most expensive.
It's pretty expensive.
Like, I'd say they're probably on the same level as maybe like the SeaWorld parks or the Busch Gardens parks in terms of like how pricey they are. So it was a big shock when they gave us tickets. Like, I'm pretty sure, I mean, I don't want to look up right now, but I want to say like tickets for Dollywood can be upwards of like $70, $80, depending on when you go.
And last year they gave us gummy bears. So that was a really, really big difference between years. But yeah, that was really surprising. And then after Dollywood was Ace National. That's what I have written down. Just, you know, the overall organization. This is something they were hyping up with the announcement of CoasterCon 47. I know we all had our theories, but it ended up being Six Flags Great America, Indiana Beach, and Little America, which is interesting. And then they also said at Eastcoaster that for the Little America Day, that's going to be renting the whole park out. So that's a really interesting announcement they did. In my mind, my headcanon was like, oh, I wish they'd do a Universal CoasterCon, but oh well, it just have to wait.
That would have been the thing I wanted. I know a lot of people were also saying maybe Texas, because it had been a while since it had been down there. So this past week, I was on a radio show that my friend does about roller coasters, and his other host was saying like, no, I'm actually really glad for this because I wanted it to be in the Chicago area. So I do get that. I wasn't really looking at that part of the country. I will say I'm glad Great America's on there, but I think I was hoping for another major park. I know a lot of people were saying Holiday World. Maybe if they want to head the other direction, kind of north of Illinois, they can maybe do one of the Minnesota parks, like Valley Fair, Mall of America.
I mean, looking into the past cons, though, it's been almost 20 years since they've done a con at Great America, I think. So it's long overdue for that park.
Yeah, Great America, I think, yeah, that should totally be on there. And Indiana Beach, I could maybe also see because they're starting, they're going to get the new coaster this next year. Or this year, hopefully it opens. Little America, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't like.
We'll see if the toboggan's operating that day.
Yeah, it's like you're going, because the only thing I know they have is a toboggan. So it'd be interesting. I'm not sure if I'll be there. It's a year and a half away, so I don't even know where I'm going to be living at the time.
Yeah, I've never been to a CoasterCon, so it's kind of. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to go.
2025. That's the. That summer is the year Epic Universe opens, and that's going to be a whole week-long trip on its own.
See, that's why I was leaning towards Universal, because I'm like, oh, what if they got that to work?
Like, if it was a Busch Gardens Tampa SeaWorld event, it'd be like, okay, great. I could go to CoasterCon for those two parks, and then I could do my Universal trip right after it or right before it, and make it like a big, week and a half long trip down to Florida.
Moving on to Sesame Place, they didn't really share too much. However, they said, this might have been a joke, but they said they might be looking to do some expansion and update work towards the front entry. They said that they're trying this year to get Oscar's Wacky Taxi open a bit more, which is great. And then they gave us free tickets to Sesame Place, which is awesome.
I have experience with Wacky Taxi being closed on the day I go. So I'm glad that they admitted that they were trying to work on that. And yeah, a ticket is really good for Sesame Place, I think, just because I feel like most enthusiasts wouldn't willingly go to Sesame Place if it wasn't for the fact that if they needed Wacky Taxi and they didn't want to pay the like $50 or so that it is to get into Sesame Place, I think the ticket was a great encouragement.
Dorney Park, we'll get more into this when we talk about the Iron Menace tour, but they did show us the upcoming Menacing Minute early before they posted it, so that was really cool. I think the idea of retheming the flyers is neat to empty buckets. Kind of an interesting name, but I digress. The retheme restaurant looks great, and then we'll get more into it when we talk about the tour. They did also briefly mention about looking to possibly retheme other areas of the park. They said maybe Hydra or like the area around that.
It was more of like a hypothetical question. Like someone asked, I think it was actually Alex, our good friend, Alex Studios, that asked if there were other areas of the park they would be interested in updating. And he said an area they would like to do is the area around Hydra, which I could really see that becoming like a little, like they kind of add in some more like Greek god theming. I was joking with you. They need to get rid of that whole pavilion area back there and do like a Camp Half-Blood section and somehow work it out with Disney to allow Percy Jackson in Dorney Park.
Dino's Wonder Wheel was back again this year. They did a presentation at last year's Eastcoaster, and it was so good that he just had to come back. This time it was a different presentation, more so about maintaining the rides.
Child labor.
And yeah, there was a theme of child labor in quotes. Mainly he got his son. So Dino's son was helping out with some of the off-season maintenance, which was really cool. He was filming some of it. If Phoenix or any of the rides at Dino's Wonder Wheel break this year, I know who to blame. But that was actually really funny and cute to see that.
And the thing I was expecting him to talk about, which he did, and then I asked him a question during his Q&A and he got to talk about it, was the fact that Dino's Wonder Wheel, and really Coney Island as a whole, but mainly Dino's Wonder Wheel, will be featured in the upcoming Ghostbusters Frozen Empire that's coming out this year. And I remember when I saw the trailer for it, I was like, oh, wait, Wonder Wheel's in the movie. And I asked him, how was that? And he got really excited because he said, oh, it was such a fun time, getting to, film a Ghostbusters movie at the park, because he was a fan of Ghostbusters when he was a kid. And he had this really cool conversation with the director. And it was actually funny. Earlier today, at my job, I work at a movie theater, and we play trailers on the TVs in the lobby. And a couple times we played the Ghostbusters trailer. And I was looking at it. I was like, man, I know the guy who was operating Wonder Wheel in that shot because it was Dino.
The probably most surprising park that was at Eastcoaster this year was Holiday World. I mean, it makes sense though because they got the new roller coaster coming, Good Gravy, which is awesome name.
Gee Willikers, that's some good gravy.
Yeah, we did get that keychain from them for free, so that was really neat. They did also talk about a few other things. So, one in the station of Good Gravy, there's actually going to be living portraits. If you don't know what that is, it's basically the same thing that's in Forbidden Journey's queue, so that's really neat. They've known about the Vekoma Boomerang for about 2 years now, and in the drone show, they actually teased it, but no one caught on to it. There was a gravy boat in the show, and they're like, "Oh, you didn't catch what we were getting on about in that drone show."
It was there all along.
And then the last interesting thing is one of my favorite things regarding Good Gravy is obviously the grandpa saying, "Gee Willikers, that's some good gravy." They did confirm he's coming back for more promos, so that's awesome. More grandpa, please.
During their Q&A, I asked them about Hollywood Nights. This year, the kind of name of it is the Gravy Games, kind of a play on Hunger Games. And I kind of asked them, you know, I know they don't really focus on tying in the event name to the actual event, but would there be any kind of like Hunger Games related stuff at the event? And he kind of said like 95% of the people at the event don't care about the name or the theme of, or like the whatever movie tie-in it is.
They just want to get that good voyage night ride with no trims. That's all they need.
But he did say like there will kind of be like subtle or kind of some minor stuff. So like for the food, they're gonna have cinnamon bread or pita bread, and that made me laugh because I'm a huge fan of the Hunger Games. So I'm like, you know what, that's kind of cool.
And then the last park that was there was Knoebels, with the actual Knoebel family presenting, including Dick Knoebel. What a legend that guy is. Their presentations normally on the casual side. They're so chill, honestly.
Yeah.
And there were two things that caught my attention. One was that they're renovating what's it called? The Sky Slide?
Yep, Sky Slide, which was one of my favorite rides as a kid. It's still a cool thing to have there. I remember riding that thing like a dozen times in a row.
And then that there's going to be a specialty Knoebels ice cream. Interesting. It's in correlation with one of their buildings turning 50, so that's neat. I will say too, this just popped up into my mind. They're also asking enthusiasts about a new location for their Rocco plane, I believe.
Basically, the whole story is kind of behind this is they took out their Power Surge ride, which has been there for a while, and they replaced it with this Rocco plane that they basically found. Like they found this Rocco plane that somebody had, and they bought it, and they put it in the park to replace Power Surge, kind of as a temporary replacement while they ordered a new Power Surge, which is kind of like basically just a newer version of the same one they had. And they're like, all right, we're going to put the new Power Surge in the spot of the old Power Surge. That means we have to put the Rocco plane somewhere. So they were kind of asking us to send in our recommendations for where to put Rocco plane, which I did have the chance to ride. It is probably one of the most insane flat rides ever. And I really like the location it's in there, where it is now. So I'd have to really think where I'd want to put it. I know they also said, and I kind of agree, is to put it near Satellite, which is kind of like a similar old school flat ride. I think it's also from like the same manufacturer, to kind of keep them next to each other. But that's also kind of like a really tight spot. So I don't really know. I think someone also said, people are saying like where the Wipeout used to be, which I'm not familiar enough with Knoebels to know where that was.
I don't know either.
I don't know. The thing is with Knoebels,
they're putting the bearing curve by 1001 Knock, right?
Yeah, that's kind of near like Skloosh and the Scrambler. Thing is with Knoebels, there's areas of the park that are both like really like tightly compact and like rides just kind of like put wherever there's open room. And then there's areas like kind of, you know, left of the Phoenix, kind of getting towards like the campground and that kind of corner of the park where there's just nothing. I mean, I know I joked when I was talking about it the other day. My friend Austin said, oh, put it in that big open field kind of across from the Frisbee. And I'm like, yeah, that's the Knoebels front lawn. That's where their house is. I don't think they'd want to put it in their lawn. So yeah, stay tuned to where the Rocco plane ends up. But I'm glad they're not like removing it or anything.
So that was the end of the actual East Coaster event itself, and we'll get to what our overall thoughts of the event were at the end, although we kind of said at the beginning. After East Coaster, we did go to Chocolatier for dinner, and then the next day, as part of East Coaster, technically...
Wait, hold on. You forgot what we did after the meal.
What did we do after the meal?
We went back to our hotel room and watched Transformers.
I was asleep.
Yeah, it took I didn't realize the TV version of Transformers, it takes them an hour and a half to get to Optimus Prime showing up.
Are you the coaster enthusiast I am looking for?
Are you username Coaster Guy 14? Are you username Coaster Guy 14? Where are the glasses?
And then Bumblebee just starts spewing out the Block Zone spiel.
Bumblebee, but instead of using the radio, he uses Coaster Idiots and Problematic Coaster
Warning,
audio.
This video may not be suitable for a common audience. The next day, as part of East Coaster, this is actually really cool. So before the tour, we made a quick trip to Chocolate World, where they gave us a free ticket to the Hershey Great Candy Expedition. If you don't know what this is their new kind of like screen show. Yeah, we got free chocolate as a part of it.
My mom took like half of it because I didn't want it.
Oh, I still have my bag. So I had done the really big 3D show back when I was a kid. I didn't do the 4D mystery.
I might have, I just don't remember.
But the way this thing worked is it was basically a 180-degree screen, no glasses, and then there were also like a few effects within the seat itself.
Basically just a bunch of subwoofers beneath our seats that would kind of vibrate.
On the arm of your chair, there were a bunch of buttons. So you got to vote kind of like which way you'd want to go and which areas you'd like to experience. It was okay.
Yeah, I think it was cute. Like, I think kids would really like it. So maybe, we are not the target demographic of, we're not the target demographic of Chocolate World in general. It's definitely a really nice place for families to go, like while on vacation in Hershey, or even like, it's a great place for people to go over off season. Like, I was surprised how crowded it was. It wasn't like crowded, but there was like a decent turnout there.
Well, I think the crowds were there for one thing and one thing only. Snoopy.
What is this? Some kind of crossover episode?
Yeah, that was also kind of neat. But the show, all right. I wouldn't do it again personally, and it's also definitely too expensive in my opinion.
Yeah, that's the other thing. So the whole kind of gimmick of the ride, spoilers for the ride.
I think we talked about spoilers.
But like the whole storyline is you're riding this train, and at 3 points, you get to select which destination you go to. So it'll be like, click the left arrow on your armrest to go to the Kisses section, and then hit the right button to go to the Twizzlers Forest or whatever. And then it gives you like a few seconds to press your button, and then it says on the screen like the percentage. For us, since there were open seats, I would hit my left button, and I would like reach behind me and hit the left buttons behind me because I really wanted to go to that section.
And you still lost.
Or sometimes we won. The kind of point of having multiple like destinations is that you want to rewrite it so that way you can see all the possible videos, or at least that's what I would want.
Like, you gotta pay to do it.
Yeah, it's like, at least on Star Tours, you don't have to pay to ride again unless you're using Genie, but you can ride it multiple times and you'll eventually see the majority of the possible outcomes. But for this, I don't know the exact price for one ride on it, but I want to say it's like, because I think most of the people when they go
I remember my ticket, it was like close to $20.
Yeah, I think just for
That's
one.
Crazy.
And I know like Chocolate World also does like package deals where it's like you can, Adventure 1 is all the attractions there. Adventure 2 is these attractions. Adventure 3 is so-and-so. Maybe I really wanted to see the Reese's Town, but because enough people voted to go to the Twizzler section, I'll have to pay $20 to go watch it.
And it's not even a guarantee.
Yeah, you could like just keep on going, and
you could argue that's that same way with Star Tours as well, but that's free.
But again, at least Star Tours
at Disney's Hollywood Studios or Disneyland.
Which is why whenever I do Star Tours, I usually do it multiple times until I end up getting Geonosis and Hoth.
And then the last thing as part of this whole weekend was, of course, the Iron Menace tour, which I'm only going to talk about a little bit because I posted my video already for that on my YouTube. this was awesome. It was so cool to see Iron Menace up close. Listen to that, Hershey Park, up close. It was also really nice out too, but that was the whole weekend, so that was great. But it was really cool going in there. We kind of like walked right up towards like Possessed, Iron Menace, walking kind of by the flyers, and then to around where the station is, and then came back. Tour was about maybe like 20 minutes, but it was really cool to do that, and I'm happy I did it. What do you think of that tour?
Well, I really enjoyed getting close-up views of Metal Shredder. It was really cool to see the construction progress of Phantom Furnace
and Flame Licker.
I can't wait to when Dorney Park opens for the season so I can ride Phantom of the Orpera.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this, but at the Dorney presentation at Eastcoaster, they gave us the whole list of names they came up with for Iron Menace. There were probably 50 names on there, and there's some bad ones.
There's one that's literally just Furnace.
The Furnace. Not even
not the furnace. Just Furnace. Or you got Live or Die, spelled O-R-E.
Right as we left the tour, I know this piqued your interest more so than me, because you collect these things.
Yes.
Dorney Park decided to premiere both a Dorney Park Parkscape as well as, oh, there it is, already built.
For those watching the video, well, just for those that might not know, so Parkscape is a product from Coaster Dynamics where it's basically just like a piece of plastic, like a plastic base, and then 4 metal sheets that when you put them in the slots, they kind of form the skyline of the park.
It's like a bit of a depth perception thing.
Yeah, I have a few already here. I have one for Cedar Point, one for Great Adventure. I have 2 for Hershey. One without Wildcat's Revenge, and then they updated it with Wildcat's Revenge. Then this one they came out with the day that we took the tour, and it has all the major coasters on it. Even it's got Thunderhawk, it's got Iron Menace. They also got the Ferris Wheel, Dominator, and even a Demon Drop kind of in the back here. And I saw and got it. And then they also released, I don't have it here because I don't have it built yet.
Yeah, so the other thing.
The Nano Coaster for Iron Menace, which debuted that day.
Awesome. It looked great.
Well, it was also funny. For those that are in the enthusiast community, you might have seen on Instagram this guy named Zach who goes by @NeedsMoreNanos. And he actually just, I think like a few weeks ago, he got a few more Nano Coasters, I think from Europe. And he said, I finally have every Nano Coaster that's been released. And then I sent him that picture, and he's like, God dang it. I thought I could have all of them for just a little longer.
That was the end of our Eastcoaster weekend. I know we talked about a lot of stuff, and some of it will be in the videos, but I just want to make sure we talk about everything kind of together, our overall experience. I'll start with myself. I had a blast. This was so much fun. I thought Eastcoaster this year was better than last year. We got, I think, a lot better like overall free stuff, and then even the things from the regular merch was really cool to buy. So I love Eastcoaster. I'm an Eastcoaster fan, no pun intended. I came up with that name before I went to Eastcoaster. But I'll be going back to Eastcoaster easily. I think it's becoming, honestly, a tradition each February.
Yeah, I kind of have the same thoughts as you. I'm kind of disappointed that I'm only figuring about Eastcoaster now because, well, I wish I joined Ace a few years earlier than I actually did. But yeah, Eastcoaster is kind of becoming a yearly event for me. Kind of like Thrillathon and a few other events that I've been now going to every year. And yeah, it's just a really fun event to, get to hang out with all of your Ace friends, especially, it is February, so we haven't really done Ace events since, October. You had the like Halloween or fall events, and a lot of the bigger events were more towards the summer. So, now we're getting kind of like into the middle of the off season. This is like the perfect time to kind of have everybody gather together and just, have some fun and also get to talk with or get to hear from the parks about what's going on over the off season and what exciting things they're doing for the upcoming season. And like you said, I mean, you said that you're going to try to go to events, Eastcoaster in the future. I don't know where I'm going to end up in the next year or so with whatever job I do. I'm trying to get a job in the theme park industry. Call me. You can find my LinkedIn page. Just look me up. If any parks are listening, I don't know where I'm going to end up in this country when I get my job, but I will try to make an attempt to come up to Eastcoaster. If you want to hear from Knoebels, you want to hear from these parks that been around for years, Eastern Pennsylvania is the region to go. I was thinking about it a while ago, and out of all of the regions in ACE, if I could pick one, I would pick Florida because they have Disney World and Universal. But if I had to pick another one, I would pick Eastern Pennsylvania just because there's a lot of really great parks in this region. And I feel like they're the ones doing the great event, like these really cool events.
Absolutely. And with that, I think that's a great place to end our discussion of Eastcoaster. I'd like to thank Michael Blue Diamond Coasters for joining me on this second episode of the Coaster Life podcast. So before we end, I want to make sure you have the chance to plug yourself, as the whole point of the Coaster Life podcast is to share the stories of different coaster enthusiasts all over. So, Michael, what are you up to these days?
Well, I am up to, like I mentioned at the top of the show, working my way through my backlog of roller coaster videos that I filmed over the 2023 season. I think I ended up filming like 30 videos from about like early June to the end of the year, and I'm working my way through getting them all out. Hopefully by the time the main summer season starts. At the time of this recording, the last video I uploaded was a really fun video that actually did really well, where I rode Steel Vengeance and Wildcats Revenge all on the same day. And that was also my very first ride on Wildcats Revenge, so you get to hear my full thoughts.
Go check out that video.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun filming that, even though most of it was just driving for about 6 hours from Cedar Point to Hershey. And the next video I'm working on, which might be up within a few days, is a video that I filmed at Knoebels. So if you want to hear my thoughts on Knoebels, this is actually the very first video that I've ever put out about Knoebels. And you also get to see our good friend David's reactions to seeing Knoebels for the first time. So it's a lot of fun. And you can find those videos at my YouTube channel, Blue Diamond Coasters. And you can also see some other posts that I do on Instagram and TikTok at Blue Diamond Coasters. I do want to get back into doing some TikTok videos. I got a couple ideas of some series of rankings that I want to do on TikTok again.
For those listening to this episode of the Coaster Life podcast on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts, if you want to see us talk, see me waving right into the camera right now, so is Michael.
Yeah.
Be sure to check out the video recording of the Coaster Life podcast that's posted every other Thursday to my YouTube channel, Eastcoaster Fan, and vice versa. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to check out the podcast on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts, whether you're on the go or doing whatever. If you're running around, listen to us talk for a long time about Eastcoaster. We'll be back for our next episode on Leap Day, which is really exciting. So not next Thursday, but the following Thursday after that. Gonna plan something really neat for that episode, just for being on Leap Day. It's gotta be something weird. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching and listening to the second episode of the Coaster Life podcast. And I hope you all have a great day and go out there and enjoy your very own coaster life. Bye, guys.
Later.